Another thing we covered for the first time, the sharing information about the project working group that has been developing the epifauna identification protocol, the quality assurance framework, and the benthic imagery purposes. So we all got a good overview of that, and it was great. It was great to see that so many questions were coming out the woodwork there. There was so much sort of interest there, and a few really interesting points about sort of expanding the uses of the quality assurance framework, maybe different benthic imagery purposes, linking up with annotation software. Other tools that are out there. iNaturalist I noticed in the comments as well. Another thing that was worth considering is sort of the idea of sample sizes, and all of our standards development at the minute has been down to the unit of a still image or a video clip. But how you break the video clip up and how you aggregate the still images has not really been totally fleshed out and agreed by everybody. So yes, there is a lot to do still. I guess the key points to take home from the project working group we heard today on the quality assurance framework is that this framework will be developed. The first sort of draft of it, like the first publicly available version, will be published by the end of the month and available to use from the start of April onwards. Going forward, there seem to be a lot of people who put their hands up during the session, the session just passed, who would be interested in looking at the system and using the system. So I guess there's a message there. It's very important for that project working group to make sure that is possible, that people can use that system going forward, and that they can feed in the new ideas to begin to grow it and to sort of to make sure that it's as functional and fit for purpose as possible. I've got a number of general feedback points and questions about the day, but I just wanted to open up to any of the speakers for any final comments from them, if they've got on how today went, on anything that they maybe missed, or any new thoughts that they've had. Sorry, speakers and the session facilitators too. Yes, yeah. Can we go to Michael, please?
Yeah, so I was just thinking about output data that we get from the catalogue of images. And I was wondering that along with the catalogue of images, whether we could have like species heat maps with geotagged photos and GPS overlay from video. So it's something that we've got for the cetacean atlas with the JNCC cetacean atlas of Northeast Europe. I wonder if we could have a similar thing with species in the catalogue.
Well, I think I don't know. I haven't got an answer that is for definite, but it sounds like a good idea. And the fact that it's something that you're already doing, then there's an application already out there. So maybe Graham has some more thoughts on this. Graham does have his real hand up now. So yes, Graham.
So many vacant real hands going around. Yeah, no. So I think I suppose it depends what's meant by sort of, I suppose, the image catalog, because it depends which catalogs are generally being talked about. But I mean, that is certainly something that is possible in image catalogs in general. So just from our own experiences in JNCC, we host well, some of our images currently, but increasing on our image catalog, and a sort of spatial aspects of the data are something that we add in, and we're actually working to develop a heat map on top of that currently. So it is going there, but not quite shooting myself in the foot, but putting a slightly devil's advocate question on there, is a question really of where the sort of geographic information best sits, which sort of goes back to the whole a few of the conversations that were going back previously of you know, should this geographic information, all this additional stuff, be its own data and just links to the images, or should it be in both places? You know, should you have your images geotagged but also a georeference in your sort of analysis data of where the sample happened, if you're calling your image a sample, which are in effect the same thing. But then if they're stored in two separate locations, the chance is that they could actually get out of sync, which causes sort of data issues. So there's a whole sort of minefield there, which is navigable and needs to be navigated. But there's a big minefield there of sort of like which approach gets taken.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, I just the data wouldn't have to necessarily be linked to an image itself, just sort of almost presence absence. So you'd have the GPS coordinates for a given photo and then just what species were present at that location. And then you'd be able to sort of filter data either by like UKCS block or by species.
Yeah, and I think that at that point, if the image itself doesn't need to be there, that is something that I mean, it's possible in currents like Dash, for example. So the Marine Biological Association, there with their archive hat on their database system, which holds what I would call a sample, so the analytical outputs of an image. They hold that information, which will say what species were there in the image and then all the other stuff, and that is actually geographically tagged already. So you could search in that system, assuming the search capabilities are there, you know, saying give me all image samples where species X occurred, if that makes sense. But you're right, it's sort of like defining where each thing should sit.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Graham and Michael. It is something that we have been discussing quite a bit, and it's a matter of like linking a lot of different things together and getting standards for them to work together. And I suspect it's something that our project working groups tomorrow are going to discuss or perhaps touch on at some point. Can I check if Joey has his hand up or not? No. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't put it up, but I've been kind of looking through my notes and thinking about what we did in the session just passed, and I think if we look at the objectives that we set out earlier on today, I think these first two sessions are more about the work done so far as opposed to the work into the future, and a lot of the next steps for things that we talked about today will be covered in some of the project working group updates tomorrow. I think we didn't. So the three things beyond sharing progress that we were looking to do were look at funding mechanisms for the work. It's a bit less relevant because this work is funded to complete in March, and that's what we were talking about, the work done to this stage. But that is definitely something that it'll be good to come back to tomorrow when we talk about the future work, because it's quite hard to work without money, without people's time. Global outreach, there was a little bit of talk about linking the work done, linking with work being done by the annotation developers and learning from Kitami, that sort of thing. But again, I think the discussions we've had today have very much centered around kind of the UK focused work that's been done for the purposes, quality assurance framework, EIP, that sort of thing. Tomorrow and Thursday should be a lot more opportunity to talk about the global outreach side of it. But we did talk a lot about challenges and solutions, which is the kind of, I guess, the key thing from these bits of work that are nearly at conclusion. So things that I put down were around the challenges of, I guess, matching what we're doing already to some of the potential solutions, like it's the mix of the spreadsheets versus the annotation software, and how best to put those together. Things like, how do we best develop the EIP? So is it workshops, or how exactly do we do that to make it better, make it more usable for people? Similarly with the QOF tool developments and some of the things that Jen spoke about around the developments there that could help, again, should be picked up by the project working groups. And then the big issue of what units are we using, what kind of scale are we talking about? And I think that is something that that can go to the action plan coordination committee to try and get a big picture answer to. Yeah, so that's kind of my summary of the last session.
That's excellent, Joey. Thanks for that. I mean, I haven't got anything to add really. That I think pretty much covers what we've done today quite nicely, and ties up where we've sort of moved things forward in meeting the objectives of the day. One or two other things that I'd like to just raise with us all, sort of some general feedback, more about the actual Teams platform. For example, the hands up, hands down hasn't been working quite as simply as we had assumed it was going to work. So sometimes maybe you do have maybe someone has had their hand up and we haven't got round to you, but it seems like a legacy hand. So if you can be patient with us sort of getting around that, and hopefully people will get to raise their question, and if it's and if we have made a mistake there, then please do just pop your question in the comments, in the comments and chat. That does seem to be working 100% of the time. And at the end of today, we could take a list of the comments that have been made, and we can bundle those up together with the things that Joey's just given us a recap of, but also what Kirsten came up with earlier on, and any of the other facilitators. And this will all head towards Neil to produce an overall report for the workshop. So the only other thing I wanted to cover, just to ask everybody whether they got a chance to try the networking space that we tried to set up, and if they gave that a go, if that worked, if the links worked, if it didn't work, if you've got any ideas for what we could try tomorrow if things didn't work. If I just ask if anyone tried it out, if they've got any thoughts they want to share, or if it didn't work, if it did work, but please could you let me know now, and we could try to set something up for tomorrow that works better if it didn't work today. Maybe what we could try as an alternative is to ask for a show of hands if anyone wanted to use the network. It's like a networking channel that we set up in the Teams site. If you wanted to use that and you tried to use that, could you please put your hand up if you wanted to use it and tried to use it? So we at least get an idea of whether people gave it a go. Okay, so we've only got one person on the call now, and we've got fewer people on the call than earlier on who tried it. Can I ask whether or not that worked? Or yeah. It's okay to ask you, Alison, like Alison Benson, if it worked or not.
No, I think Jess got my messages before, but it didn't work for me because I can't be on that and on the meeting at the same time. So I've either got to come out of all the contact with the meeting and then go into that. So I think that's just a problem for when you're a JNCC guest to go onto the team site, the JNCC team site. So
Okay. Okay. Well, that's you're one data point, I'm afraid, Alison. But at the same time, you're our only data point.
I think that's the
Yes.
same for me as well. When I tried as well, I had to log out of this JNCC session and rejoin through our NRW one. Yeah.
I think
yes,
there were a few people saying the same thing at the same time, I think, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just trying to remember how we managed to get it working in the November workshop, and whether it's something that is to do with the meeting. So if we posted the meeting link in the chat function here, like we did in November, that might be easier for people to be able to navigate between them. So if we set up a live meeting and then post that into the chat, it should hopefully work. That worked for you in the November one, didn't it, Alison? When we did that, we put the links in the chat for the breakout
Yeah, that
rooms.
worked really well, but I think Duncan tried to do that today and it didn't. I clicked on the link and it still asked me to leave the meeting, so I'm not sure. If you had a meeting, oh no, you get whatever you do. If you join another meeting, you get chucked off, I think.
Okay, maybe that's changed since November then, because it worked that you could just jump and it would put you on hold in this meeting in November. So yeah. Okay.
Are you using breakout rooms, or was it a different thing? You used the breakout rooms in November, and that did work for me then.
They didn't exist on the Teams platform in November, but we were able to get a workaround that used channels, which we treated like breakout rooms.
Okay.
But actually, Teams does actually have breakout rooms now. But in trialing this platform, we found it was it was a little bit fiddly and complicated. But it's sounding like what we've just tried today is a bit fiddly and complicated too. Alternatives are to set up an entirely separate meeting that runs the entire day, and you just log into that. If you want to sort of chat, and then you log back into this when you want to attend the sessions. That's one possibility. Another possibility is to try harder at what we tried today. Basically have a think about that and see if we can get that to work. And a third possibility, I would say, I have noticed that, the meeting chat that we've actually just got running in this meeting has been a good place for people to at least post messages and have, some basic discussion, only typed discussions. But that's working as a backup at the moment. So there is something there, but I think I'm getting the impression what people would like, or if they want more, then we can try and figure that out. Some people think the chat in the meeting's fine though, so we'll try and find a better solution. Yes, Joey. Yes. Want to come in there?
Yeah, you're probably just about to say exactly what I'm going to say. I think if we, either one or your answer one or two, or somewhere in between, we could try and set something up. But I was going to suggest that we could, whatever solution we try, the chat is a backup, but we could have that up and running by 9:15 tomorrow morning. So that if anyone who is keen to network can at least try it before the meeting starts, we can put some instructions on the Teams channel so people can try and follow those. If it doesn't work, we've got the chat, but at least it means that people can try before we start, and if it works, then we'll know at that stage.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So we'll try another version of that tomorrow. As Joey said, and in the meantime, though, I think we've got through all the content we wanted to today, and we've got things to add under the objectives of the day for, less so for funding opportunities for these discussions today, but quite a lot for future challenges and future sort of work. and a little bit of global outreach, more in the form, as Joey pointed out, of sort of working more with sort of annotation software developers. Yes, there's another comment come through there from Tammy Horton about so working with the EIP soon. I think this is maybe about deep sea taxa or something like that. Is that?
It's to do with a paper that Tammy's just published on different qualifiers for different imagery-based qualifiers for identifications. We've talked about it within the EIP workshops already, so it's something that
great.
we're aware of.
Brilliant. Okay, great. So I think we've covered everything that we planned to today. Thank you everybody for dialing in and for participating in the sessions, for your questions. And we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow if you're able to make it. We've got two really interesting sessions on one focusing more on the digital realm, AI, data flows, catalogs, and then the other focusing on sort of day-to-day imagery analysis that we do, sort of how do we count things, how do we identify them, and use of annotation software. So some really interesting sessions lined up. Things planned to kick off at 9:30 tomorrow. So if we can see you at 9:30, that would be great. Thanks again for today.